Hey everybody, this is Roy Candy, and today we're taking a look at the Rogue and Gambit Hero Packs for Marvel Champions. Let's get into it. Alright, let's take a look at the Gambit Hero Pack here. So of course, Gambit starts on Alter Ego side as Remy LeBeau. He has 3 recovery, and he has a hand size of 6 with hit points of 9, and he has the Thief Extraordinaire ability here. This is an action thwart. Exhaust Remy LeBeau and look at the top 2 cards of the encounter deck. Discard one of those cards and remove threat from a scheme equal to the number of boost icons on that card. This is pretty crazy because he can actually remove threat while in Alter Ego. And he's kind of getting to leave one of the top cards on there. So you get to get rid of the one with a ton of icons and lower the threat that way, but then also make it so you can kind of scry the enemy deck there a little bit. And then we do have the Gambit side here as well. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense, charge the card, action, place 1 charge counter here, limit once per round. And then throw the card, interrupt, when you play an attack event, remove up to 3 charge counters from here, and that event deals +1 damage for each charge counter removed. So he's all about boosting up those attack events, basically allowing you to do even more damage as he charges up all those attack events. Then we have an ally here of Rogue. So Rogue is 2 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage, costs 4 to play. Reduce the cost of Rogue to play by 1 for each charge counter on your identity. So she could be a cost of way less if you get a whole bunch of charge counters on there. She could technically be free if you had all 4 of them on there. Of course, you can only spend 3 at a time with his ability, but that's still really cool that she gets cheaper as those go up, and they're definitely going to be up. So you'll never pay that 4 for her. Gambit's Guild Armor. This is a 1 cost upgrade. Hero response. After Gambit defends against an attack and takes no damage, exhaust this armor and ready Gambit. Awesome. So when he defends, he can hop back up. Gambit's Staff, 1 cost upgrade. When an enemy attacks you, exhaust Gambit's Staff and deal 1 damage to the enemy. So he smacks you back with the staff. Then this is a 1 cost support. Thieves Guild. Alter Ego action. After you resolve your Thief Extraordinaire ability, exhaust Thieves Guild and remove 1 threat from the scheme, or from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from that scheme, draw a card. So that's really cool. So it allows you to remove from one that's not the scheme here that you're doing with his ability, but you can also do it on whichever. But also if you remove the last one, you get to draw a card as well. That's pretty awesome. Then Royal Flush. This is a 3 cost event. Place 1 charge counter on Gambit. So helping his ability here. And then deal 0 damage to an enemy, deal 0 damage to an enemy, deal 0 damage to an enemy. And the way this works is basically for each one of the counters you're removing for his thing, which could be up to 3, you're dealing an extra damage for each of those instances of deal 0 damage. So if you remove 3 counters, this would be deal 3 damage, deal 3 damage, deal 3 damage. So basically, Gambit's ability boosts each instance of when an event card would do damage. That's pretty awesome. So you have a couple of those Royal Flushes, then you have Charge the Card, or Charged Card. This is a 2 cost event, 4 damage for an enemy for this attack. If you use the Throw the Card ability, if you use 1 counter, it gains range. If you use 2 counter, it also gains piercing. If you use 3 counters, it also gains overkill, which would be a total of 4, 5, 6, 7 damage, which you could do with this if you removed all those counters. That's pretty cool. And then you get 3 of those. And then Charmer here, this is a 2 cost event. It is a Alter Ego action. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from a scheme, confuse a villain. This is pretty cool because this is the first hero that's doing a ton of removing threat in Alter Ego. So that fact that he's a super thief means he can kind of stop those schemes, which is pretty cool. This is a 0 cost event, natural ability. This is the hero interrupt. When you defend against an attack, place 1 charge counter on Gambit. For each charge counter on Gambit, you get +1 defense for this attack. So you could basically block a ton of stuff if you have a bunch of charge counters on him there. Then Molecular Acceleration. When you spin this card, place 1 charge counter on Gambit. And of course it has 2 icons there. So that's awesome. A resource card there. And then we have Bishop. This is a 3 cost ally. It is 2 thwart with 1 consequential damage, 0 attack with 2 consequential damage. Let's see how that works. After an enemy attacks you, place 1 energy counter here. When Bishop attacks, remove each energy counter from him For each counter discarded this way, he gets +2 attack for this attack with a maximum of up to 6. So if you're able to kind of like have Bishop sitting around, he can get a bunch of those counters so that way he can have a bunch of extra attack each time he attacks. It's pretty cool. Then Dazzler is a 4-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage, and then response. After Dazzler enters play, confuse an enemy. So awesome, she just comes down and confuses them. But she does cost 4, so it's pretty expensive. Operative Skills is a 2-cost upgrade. 3 uses, max 1 per player. When you thwart, remove 1 operative counter from here. That thwart removes an additional threat. So making your thwarts get rid of extra threat there, so that's pretty awesome. And do note that his ability here is technically a thwart ability, so you can use that with that as well to remove extra threat. Then Breaking and Entering. Play only if your identity is Spy or Thief trait. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. So removing threat from a scheme there as an action. That's pretty cool. So it's not a hero action or an alter ego action. It's just an action. That's pretty cool. Then Stealth Strike, hero action. Deal 4 damage to an enemy. That if that enemy is defeated by this attack, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So awesome. So dealing some damage, but then also removing threat if you're able to knock somebody out while doing it. And then we have a little justice resource here, removing an additional threat. We've seen this passion for justice. Professor X, which we've seen before as well. 3 cost ally, 2 thwart, 0 attack. After Professor X enters play, choose 1, confuse the villain, stun a minion, or ready an X-Men character. At the end of the round, if Professor X is still in play, discard him, so he doesn't stick around very long. Kind of like Nick Fury back in the day. 2-cost support for X-Mansion here. This is an alter ego action. Exhaust X-Mansion to heal 1 damage from a mutant or X-Men character. Any player who's in alter ego has the mutant trait can trigger this ability. It's awesome, so anybody can use that. Then Beauty and the Thief. This is a team-up card for Gambit and Rogue. This is a hero action, thwart and attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme. So awesome there if they're in play together. Hit and Run, this is a 3-cost event. Deal 2 damage to an enemy, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So Gambit's doing a little bit of both, removing that threat and doing a bunch of damage. It's pretty cool. So you get 3 of those hit and runs. Then Mutant Education, this is a 0-cost event. Play only if you're a mutant. Alter ego action, choose 2 identity-specific cards from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. If X-Mansion is in play, you get to also draw a card. This is an event that allows you to get some of those cards, shuffle back into your deck so you can probably play them again, which would be helpful. Then we have the Energy, Genius, and Strength, which we've seen a ton of times. And then we have a little bit of the obligations and stuff like that. I don't like to go too deep into this, but you can kind of see a little bit of his nemesis and what's going on here with all the Assassin's Guild and the thieves coming after him, you know, that sort of stuff. But yeah, lots of very thematic stuff here. And then we can see the extra cards that come in with him. This is a 1-cost support, War Room, a max 1 per player. After an ally attacks and defeats a minion, exhaust this and remove 1 threat from a scheme. So making your allies remove threat from schemes is cool. X-Men Instructor. I love this art with Wolverine being like, we're trying to do this plan, but I don't know what's going on. I'll play only if your identity has the mutant trait. Alter ego. Choose up to 2 X-Men allies from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. If X-Mansion is in play, you get to draw a card. So you get 3 of those, allowing you to get some of your X-Men back. So we have another module here you can add in for the villain, for a bad guy here. So you can add in Exodus, and of course you have all the cards with him as well. I normally don't like to go into these because I like to personally be surprised when I draw the card and read it for the first time. Be like, oh, that's how it works, and this is how things go. So I figure you guys might like that as well. Anyway, that's Gambit. All right, let's take a look at the Rogue pack here. So Rogue, let's start over with Anne-Marie. It is 3 recovery, set your touch upgrade aside, which we'll look at in a second. Withdraw, force response after you change this form, set your touched aside, which we'll look at in a second as well. And then we have Rogue, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense, skin contact action, attach touch to another character. You gain each of the attached character's traits until the end of the round, limit once per round. Force response after the player phase begins, find touch and set it aside. So touch is going to keep disappearing each time. She has a hand size of 6 on alter ego side, and then 5 on hero side, and then 11 hit points. All right, let's take a look at this touched card that we've talked about so much. This is an upgrade, touched. If touched is attached to a minion, Rogue gains Overkill. If it's attached to a villain, Rogue gains Retaliate. If it's attached to an ally, Rogue gains the Aerial trait. And if it's attached to a hero, Rogue gains Stalwart. Awesome. And then Gambit here is an ally for Rogue. This is a ally with 2 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage with a little asterisk there. He enters play with 3 charge counters on him. When Gambit attacks, remove a charge counter from him and deal 1 damage to the enemy, which is very much kind of how Gambit works with the actual hero there. And then we have an upgrade here, Rogue's Jacket. While touched is attached to a friendly character, Rogue gains 1 thwart. While Rogue is attached to an enemy character, Rogue gains 1 attack. So depending on how you attach this touch card, you're going to get a bunch of different abilities and be able to boost her attack or thwart with the jacket there. And then Superpower Adaption. This is an awesome card. This is a 0-cost event. Superpower. Hero action. If touched is attached to a friendly character, search its owner's discard pile for an event that belongs to the same classification as that character. Identity specific, aspect, or basic. Add that event to your hand. That's awesome. So basically, you can put touched on another player, and you'll be able to grab cards out of their discard pile, basically giving you some of their powers, which is pretty cool. Or if you put it on one of your allies, you could kind of grab a Rogue card out of the discard pile as well. But yeah, you get 3 of those, allowing her to basically turn into other heroes, sort of, or get a little bit of their powers, which is so thematic for Rogue. And then Southern Cross here. This is a 3-cost event. Hero action, deal 6 damage to an enemy. If Rogue has the Aerial trait, it's 2 extra damage, which of course she would have that if it was attached to an ally. If she has Retaliate, stun the enemy, which you would have if it's attached to the villain. And Stalwart, if she has Stalwart, you get to draw a card, which you would have if it's attached to a hero. So awesome, you get a couple of those. It can do a bunch of damage. Actually, you get 3 of those. Then Going Rogue, this is a 2-cost event. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. If Rogue has Aerial, remove 2 additional threat. Retaliate, confuse the enemy. Stalwart, draw a card. So Going Rogue allows you to get rid of some of that threat. And depending on who touch is attached to, will do different things as well. Transfer Energy, this is a 2-cost event. Attach touch to a character other than Rogue and deal 2 damage to that character. Heal 2 damage from Rogue and ready her. You gain each of the attached character's traits until the end of round. That's pretty awesome. So she's sucking out their life and getting life back herself, which is so awesome and thematic. Then Bulletproof Bell. This is a 1-cost event. Hero Interrupt. When an enemy with touched attached to them attacks, prevent all damage from that attack and gain a tough status card. That's pretty cool because it could just be that enemy could attack somebody else and you could be like, nah. They don't get to do it. You jump in the way and stop all the bullets. That's awesome. All right, let's take a look at some of the protection cards here. This is Armor, 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 consequential, 1 attack, 1 consequential. Play only if your identity has the X-Men trait and then has toughness. So 2 costs with toughness and 2. Pretty good blocking there, Armor. That makes a lot of sense. And then Iceman, the dude himself. This is a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage. Iceman enters the play with 3 freeze counters on him. After a minion enters play, remove a freeze counter from Iceman and stun that minion, basically freezing them in their tracks. Then we have X-Gene mixed in here with the rest of the stuff. Well, I guess we'll talk about this early. This is a 1-cost upgrade. X-Gene, I love this card. Play only if you have the mutant trait max 1 per player. You can exhaust X-Gene to generate a wild resource for an identity-specific event. These are really awesome if you have an event-heavy hero. There's more of those, but they're further in the deck. We'll get to those in a second. This is a 4-cost ally Karma. 0 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 0 attack, 1 consequential damage. Okay, well, how does that work? Response, after you play Karma from your hand, choose a non-elite minion. While Karma is in play, take control of that minion and treat the controlled minion as if it was an ally with a blank text box. Its sword is equal to its printed scheme, and it takes 2 consequential damage after it thwarts or attacks. So taking control of a minion there, that's pretty cool. You get to basically mind control them with Karma, which is pretty awesome and thematic. Judo skills. This is a 2-cost upgrade. Put 3 judo counters on here. When you defend against an enemy attack, remove one of the counters there, and that enemy gets -2 attack for that attack. So stopping them in their tracks with your skills, countering them. Unflappable, which of course we've seen before, but this has X-Men art on it instead of Daredevil. This basically allows you to allows you to take no damage and exhaust this and draw a card. Then Preemptive Strike here. This is a 1-cost event. When a boost card is turned face up, while the villain attacks, cancel all boost icons from that card and deal 1 damage to the villain for each boost icon canceled this way. So canceling boost icons and dealing damage back with the Preemptive Strike. Whoosh. Very protection of them. And then a Not Today event. Hero Interrupt. When your hero defends against an attack, you get +2 defense for that attack. And if no damage was taken from that attack, you remove 2 threat from a scheme. So not only blocking, but also getting rid of that threat at the same time during the enemy phase. Pretty cool. And then we've seen Defensive Energy, basically helping with your defense cards and letting you draw a card. This is an awesome card here. 2-cost support. Mora MacTaggart. Play only if your identity has a mutant trait. After a mutant alter ego changes into a hero form, exhaust this and you draw a card. So this only works with mutants, but it allows you to draw a card for a 2-cost support. Seems pretty cool that you can add into, and since it's basic, you can add it into any of the mutants. That's pretty awesome. Then here's the rest of the X genes. Still love that card. That card's awesome. Then Beauty and the Thief, which we talked about with Gambit. This is basically the team up card. Deal 4 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme. Awesome team up there. And then we of course have the Genius, Strength, and Energy. And then we have her Nemesis, which of course is Mystique, which is awesome. And of course you can check out all of that with the awesome thematic stuff there. And then Rogue's obligation here is Deadly Touch. I don't normally go into these too much, but this is super thematic. If touched, the attached friendly character takes 2 damage and discard this card. If touched is not attached to a friendly character, place 2 threat on the main scheme. So just makes a lot of sense with her accidentally hurting her friends, which kind of can be super thematic as well. Let's take a look at the other cards that come in here. You get Medlab, max 1 per player. After an ally is defeated by consequential damage, exhaust this and place exhaust Medlab. Place here, limit 1 per ally. Exhaust Medlab to play the ally here as if it were in your hand. It enters play exhausted. So there's some Medlabs. And then we have the basically the module you can add in here. This is the Ravers, and of course I don't go into those too much, but a bunch of mean teamwork guys here with some nasty stuff going on with all these guys. And that's basically what you get in Rogue. So first, let's take a look at Gambit here. So Gambit is kind of cool with his whole like charging up cards. I love the fact that he also has the thief stuff where he's able to basically remove threat and look at the top of the encounter deck to kind of see what's coming out, and basically being able to remove threat from schemes is really cool. And the fact that he can do all that in alter ego form, and the fact that he charges up basically a bunch of events. And it's kind of cool because I really want to go back and like see all the different events that have like multiple like times that it does damage, because that'll all be great when you add that into your Gambit deck. It's really cool that he can kind of have like those different abilities depending on the number that he spends on stuff. He can just do a bunch of damage, he can do a bunch of thwarting, and he's kind of just like an all-around character. It just kind of like makes sense for Gambit being a thief and being sneaky and being able to charge stuff up. It just feels thematic, which they do a great job in Marvel Champions. And then Rogue is really cool because Rogue basically has all the stuff where you can kind of like steal cards out of an opponent's discard pile with her basically changing stuff up, and the fact that she has that touch card that kind of like gives her abilities based on who you put it on. I will mention that Rogue is kind of a little bit harder to play when you're playing solo, because you're not going to be able to put it really on a hero because you have to put touched on someone else. So in solo, you're not really going to have nearly as much options. I think she's definitely a lot better in multiplayer, but she is still fun. I played her solo as well and still been able to get allies out, put the card on myself, be able to get cards out of my own discard pile, being able to try to mix that up. You can still do a lot of cool stuff with her. And the fact that she can kind of like take over any character's kind of powers a little bit by pulling cards out of their discard pile. Just feels so thematic for a Rogue. So for both of these decks, I'm giving them both a 9. I really enjoy these decks. And I mean, Gambit and Rogue are some of my favorite characters in all of X-Men and all of Marvel in general. So I just really enjoy playing these and having them to add to the roster of all the other X-Men stuff. I've had a blast playing with all the Mutant Genesis stuff, and it's just really fun to have these guys face off against Sentinels, have these guys facing off against Magneto. It's just fun and thematic as you have all the different X-Men stuff. So let me know what you guys think about Marvel Champions. Let me know what you guys think is next for the future of the game. Everybody's like waiting on pins and needles, like what's coming out for Marvel. Now that I kind of have everything that's currently been announced, I'm really excited to do all that stuff. But I have so many things. I was organizing all of my stuff for the game, and I'm like, man, there's so many characters that I need to go back and revisit and play through a ton. Like, I really want to play more Agent Venom. I want to play more Nebula. I want to play so many different characters over and over again, just because there's so much replayability in this game, and now we have so many heroes and so many cards to play with. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this review. Let me know if you're going to be getting Rogue and Gambit, which if you're all about Marvel Champions and have everything, I definitely would suggest these. And I'll see you on the next one.